This is the new Subaru Crosstrek, and you may have guessed it, the XV is no more, which means this Crosstrek is the replacement going forward. But don't fret, because it still has the same basic underpinnings as a lot of Subaru products. It's got symmetrical all-wheel drive, and also a flat 4 engine, iconic parts of a Subaru product. So what does the Crosstrek cost in 2023? Well, the range starts at $34,990 before on-road costs. This car in particular, the S variant, is priced at $41,490 before on-road costs, which is pretty good value really. So in today's video, we're gonna have a look at everything to do with this brand new Crosstrek, check out its design, its interior, its technologies, how safe it is, and also, most importantly, how it drives on the road and off the road. So looking at the design of the Subaru Crosstrek, look, I think it's really smart and sophisticated, and it looks quite a bit better than the old XV. That's just my personal opinion, and it is subjective. However, you see that there's a new grille design, there's plenty of plastic cladding down the front here, as well as you've got the LED lights as well, and you've got this Sunblaze Pearl metallic color that I think really pops, especially in the bright sunlight. So what's it like inside the Subaru Crosstrek? Well, in general, it's a pretty nice interior. There are a lot of sort of hard, scratchy plastics around the place, and this leather steering wheel doesn't feel particularly leathery, which is a bit of a shame. It would be probably well wearing for the long term, but it's not that comfortable to put your hands on. So we've got some soft touch materials on the doors, which are really nice, but sort of around where your legs are, it's all hard, scratchy plastic, which is a bit of a shame. Again, this is a $40,000 car. It's not an $80,000 car, so have to be kind of realistic there with how the cabin is put together. Now, the seats are leather upholstered, and they are electric for the driver, so that's really good to see. They're also heated for the front seats as well. All in all, I think it's a pretty nice cabin. It definitely feels fresh and doesn't look dated or in any way sort of old school, so that's really nice to see. So for your main driver's display, you have 2 analog dials, so no full digital cluster here, but you do get a small 4.2-inch screen in the middle that shows all your information, such as your trip, your fuel economy, and also how the lane keep and stuff is working. So the main highlight of the interior is this massive 11.6-inch portrait screen. It reminds me a little bit of a Tesla, but it's got a lot of functionality in it. It's got the climate controls down the bottom, and then you've got all the main touch points at the top, such as your radio, your maps, and your phone. It works pretty well. It's not the fastest system, but it does a pretty good job. One of the downsides though is the reversing camera. 1, the quality, and 2, the size that it pops up on the actual screen itself is really small, and it kind of distorts the view out the back. I didn't particularly like that. So this 11.6-inch infotainment screen, it also runs wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is really good. It works pretty flawlessly, which is great to hear. And it's linked to a 10-speaker Harman Kardon sound system that is specifically for this S variant. Also to note in the interior is a wireless charger down here, as well as 2 pretty big cup holders, large door bins, you can fit a pretty large drink bottle in there, and 2 USB ports, 1 USB-A and 1 USB-C. So jumping into the back of the Crosstrek, look, it's pretty good back here. There's actually a cool little divot in the roof that gives you extra headroom, which is really nice. Knee room, not too bad with my driver's seat sat as it is. Plenty of toe room. It's actually pretty comfortable. I don't know how good it would be with 5 people back here, like 5 full-grown adults, but I think it's not too bad in terms of space and packaging. There are some door bins on the side here that you can fit water bottles in. There's a USB-C and a USB-A port just in the center there, but there's no rear air vents. So that's a bit of a downside. And there is a flip down armrest, as you can see right here, with 2 cup holders, which is really convenient as well. So good to know. Not too bad back here in the back seat. So in terms of design for the back of the Crosstrek, you can see that the taillights are slightly different to the XV that came before. It's got a more of a C-shaped little design to it, which I think is really cool and a little bit aggressive and sporty. So as well as the taillights, we've also got a lot of plastic cladding going on down here, including a new diffuser that wasn't on the previous XV. So for the boot and the storage space of the Subaru Crosstrek, you have 291 litres of space back here, which is fine, but it's not the biggest boot for an SUV, let's be honest. Underneath you have a temporary spare wheel, and there's no automatic tailgate, which is a bit of a shame. To service the new Subaru Crosstrek, it'll cost you $2,373 over a 5-year period. Now in terms of warranty, the Subaru Crosstrek is covered by Subaru's 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. Now, Subaru claims that the new Crosstrek is able to do 7.2 litres per 100 on the combined claimed cycle. However, we found that it was more the case that we got about 7.7 litres per 100 kilometres on a mix of driving from highway to back roads and even a little bit of off-roading. Over the last 12 months, the median budget direct customer paid $939 to comprehensively insure their new Subaru XV or Crosstrek. Your premium may vary based on things such as insurers take into account, such as your age, driving history, where you live, and whether or not you garage the car. Okay, so what is it like actually driving the Subaru Crosstrek on the road? And we'll start with the road because that's where the fundamentals of this car really come into play. The Subaru Crosstrek is fitted with the same 115 kilowatt, 196 Newton meter, 2-litre engine. There hasn't been any boosts to performance or outputs for this new Crosstrek model, but for most of the time it's fine as it is. And when I say fine, I mean it's good for daily driving around town, and especially on the highway, it's a very quiet unit. But the main problem is when it's linked to this CVT transmission, and I just find it to be a little bit whiny, if that's probably the best word for it. It just feels a little bit strained when you put your foot down. And you know, you're going to come across this when you go onto the highway or you're overtaking, and the car just makes so much noise in doing so. It's a little bit unrefined. Now, would a 2.5 litre engine work better? It might have the same problem if that's the case with the CVT transmission, but I think what would be awesome with this car would be a little turbo strapped onto the engine. It would give a lot more low down torque. You wouldn't have to wring out the engine so much, and it would feel, you know, a little bit better to drive. Now, in terms of talking about how the car drives, on the road it's pretty comfortable. The suspension is quite supple, and you find that both on-road and off-road that it's definitely tuned for comfort, and that's really good. That's a really good thing. At higher speeds, the Crosstrek is really good, and it is really comfortable, both in the back seat and in the front seat. This would be a really good daily driver. Now, when you do get to the corners, it's not too bad. There is some noticeable body roll, but I mean, this is no Skoda Kamiq or other sort of more sporty small SUVs, as you might say. This is definitely designed for going to the shops, taking the kids to school, and just driving around town. And if you want to do a day trip, you can. Now, coming on to my next point, which is how this car goes off the beaten trail. That is where it really shines, this car. And the reason for that is because of the symmetrical all-wheel drive system that really, really grips up, and it gives you a lot of traction. If you're, say for example, going into a campsite, or you're going on a hiking trail and you have to drive through some pretty gnarly terrain, this will get you out of it really easily. I found on the launch that we've just had with the Crosstrek, it was really, really capable, and surprisingly so for a car that's, you know, starts from $35,000 before on-road costs. That all-wheel drive you don't get on every small SUV, so I think it's really good what Subaru have done to keep this symmetrical all-wheel drive system in such a lower cost option. So off-road, it's really, really good, and it's quite, it can articulate quite well over bumps, which is really impressive. You'll see in some of the B-roll shots of us off-roading that it was very, very capable, and I was really surprised by it. So all in all, I think the car drives quite well, better off-road than on, but I mean, you have to understand that most drivers aren't going to necessarily use this car for off-roading. But if you want to go up the beach or go down a fire trail to get to a hiking spot, this will do it more than happily. Now, in terms of safety, this Crosstrek hasn't actually been rated yet. The previous XV did get a 5-star NCAP safety rating back in 2017, but it hasn't been updated since. Now, as standard, Subaru have fitted their eyesight system to this car, and I find it to be really, really good. The systems work really well on the highway and on general roads. I've got a lot of features chucked into this car in terms of safety. You've got lane departure warning, lane keep assist, you've got adaptive cruise control, and autonomous emergency braking, just to name a few. So it is really quite a full package for the money in terms of safety. So all in all, I think that the Subaru Crosstrek is a really, really capable car, both on-road and off. It's no sports car. It's designed for families. It's designed for day-to-day commuting. And I think that is a really good thing. It's definitely an SUV, small SUV that I could recommend to a lot of people, especially if they like going away somewhere on the weekend or they like going camping, for instance. So in that regard, the Subaru Crosstrek does a really good job. So what do I honestly think about this new Subaru Crosstrek? Well, in general, it's pretty good package for the money. This one's priced at around $41,000 before on-road costs, and you get a lot for your money, and you get those Subaru traits that people know and love. People keep coming back for these cars, and I can see why. They're a really, really excellent choice. I think the small SUV segment is a perfect opportunity for young families to get into a larger sized vehicle, and this Subaru Crosstrek does the job really, really well. And if you do happen to be at a campsite or go for a hiking trail and you need some extra grip, this all-wheel drive system will pull you out, and a lot of those other SUVs can't give that. They can't match that experience. But it isn't all perfect. You see, this car has a pretty basic interior. Yes, it's $40,000, but I think it could be a little bit more special for the money. And that engine and CVT combo is not particularly inspiring, and it doesn't really provoke any enthusiastic driving. But I want to hear what you guys have to say in the comments below. And of course, while you're down there, make sure you like and subscribe. And thanks for watching Chasing Cars.